All right, well, welcome everybody to our annual capital improvement program meeting. We usually open it up. We have each board, we have the city council call their meeting to order, and the planning commission call their meeting to order. They usually do roll up the calling order as well. And then we get into our projects. Today we're really only talking about, let me rephrase. The department heads will come up, we'll talk about projects that are either new or have significantly changed. That being stated, anything's on the table. We're more than happy to answer any questions about any project. By all means, if there's something you have a question about, let us know and we'll get to it. That being said, we'll try to just hit the highlights initially, and we'll go from there. Other than that, despite the fact we have two meetings going on, we'll try to keep it. It's not nearly quite as formal as our usual meeting, so if you have any questions, just let us know, stop us. Don't have to wait for us to be done. So, that being said, Mayor, you call the council meeting to order.
Very good. Thank you, Adam. Call the joint meeting of the Planning Commission and City Council to order. Call the roll, please.
Hess.
Here.
Jensen.
Here.
Nielsen.
Here.
Nowak.
Here.
And Walgora.
Here.
Special meeting of the Planning Commission will come to order. We'll have a roll call, please.
Saber.
Here.
Lewis. Ubaltz.
Here.
Mitchell. Austin.
Here.
Voida.
Here.
Kirschner.
Here.
Gilmore.
Here.
Van Wagner.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
All right, well, we'll dive right in. Usually we just kind of go down in order, and we save Rich for last because he deals with about 2/3 of this stuff. But nevertheless, Ann, if you'd come on down and tell us a little bit about your DDA changes.
So for those of you that have seen, since the last year since we met, my name is Ann Gentry. I'm Executive Director of the Alpena DDA. So as you'll see on here, a lot of our projects are the same from last year, but there's two new ones that I'll talk a little bit about. So a lot of these should look pretty familiar. I'll go briefly through them since we don't have that many. And if we have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask. So the first one is our Property Acquisition Economic Development Fund. This is something we've been doing for a few years. We designate $10,000 a year to go into a specific fund that we can use for grant match, for projects that come up for property acquisition. So far, we haven't had to dip into that for anything, but that at least allows us to put some money aside every year should those projects come up. So for that, we have $10,000 each year, and then with the intention to raise it as our budget hopefully increases. The second one, downtown facade grants, that's one that we've done for quite a while as well. So we currently offer up to $10,000 for facade downtown that we match. We started reviewing these on a more rolling basis, and we upped that number to $20,000 last fiscal year. And currently, almost every year we award all of it out based on applications. So this year our intention is to offer $20,000 again, so up to $10,000 per address, or $5,000 or whatever the half of a project should be. So our intention is to continue this project since a lot of great improvements, hopefully you've been able to see, have taken place because of that matching funds. And then the intention is, as time goes by, to lower that to $15,000 as hopefully less and less requests are coming through. The third one is one of our new ones. So as you know, there are alleyways that run through our downtown off of 2nd Avenue, starting from between the Fresh Palette and where the record store is, and they continue on by Master's Shoes, almost all the way to the harbor. This is something that I think across committees and even within the city has been brought up before, but the DDA would love to see those be improved. Kind of following suit of how Detroit and other cities have done, if it's possible to close them to vehicle traffic, whether it's every day or weekends or by special request. That's something we still need to figure out the details for, but the intention would be to start off with one alley, especially near the center building, since the owners of that have expressed much enthusiasm for having that done, and to kind of move along as more and more interest develops. So some of those improvements would be resurfacing it, hopefully adding some greenery, adding some lighting, public art, et cetera, So that is something that we're hoping to put into the budget this year to kick off. The next one kind of follows suit with that. It's been in our CIP for a while, and every year we kind of review it year by year what projects come up. This one is placemaking / public art. So that's essentially, any pedestrian areas, any public spaces we offer improvements to. This year, we're working on a public mural project specifically, so hopefully that will come into our budget, for July first, with hopefully an announcement soon where that will be and what that will look like. But again, this so far has kind of been requests year by year, kind of what comes up, but hopefully this year we'll have something tangible in the budget for. The next one, streetscapes, this is kind of similar to public art as well, kind of as needs come up, whether it be lighting, parking lot improvements, anything kind of in the physical realm of what our downtown is. The next one, replace Christmas decorations. We started this year, with it, and we have some money left since we haven't spent quite as much as we thought we would. So hopefully we'll be able to finish those up this year, and then should we need some in next fiscal year, we have another 10,000 allocated, to either update the garland or update some of the tall lamppost decor. The next one, this is one of the new ones, that our board has been talking about, looking into, is a downtown retail incubator. So right now, especially in our core, there's not a lot of spaces left to rent out, which is a great problem to have. We really want to take a more active role in encouraging the type of development that really drives foot traffic downtown. So restaurants, art, food, drink, retail, shopping, things like that. So, you know, with the potential of property ownership and converting a larger space into much smaller stalls, you know, if you imagine like the center building is a great example of what a project like this could look like. Of course, lots of details to figure out and where that location might be, but this is something that we're establishing as a priority to look into to really help facilitate some of the development we really want to see downtown. Another component of this too, as other communities have done, is taking like a marketplace approach where we could have flexible stalls ranging to long-term stalls. So this is one of the new ones, again, dependent on a lot of factors, but we have established as a priority to begin looking into. The next one, again, another bigger project that for a while the DDA has established as a long-term goal is to acquire and renovate the State Theater. Right now it's owned by a corporate chain, so again, we have established it a priority, looking at different options at how this ownership and project could turn out to have it be a community performing arts center. And last but not least, again, hope you don't mind going through these kind of quickly, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. Market study, market plan update, we do a formal update every 5 years to this, and then we'll, you know, to check in on what we've accomplished in our TIF plan. So this one will be coming up in 2021, 2022. And then this year, we're also hoping to do kind of a less formal strategic planning session out of this to just touch base on where we are in our projects and what our short and long-term goals are. So that is the brief update of some of our DDA goals. Are there any questions? Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your support.
All right, well, next up in line, we'll go, Chief Forbush, if you'd be so kind to tell us about your project.
Okay, I'll be brief. I know that's hard to believe, but I will. We don't have a whole lot of new projects, but we have some really good projects. On the ambulance side, the only real priority this year is getting back into the ambulance loading safety system. We have 4 of those systems in place. We have 7 ambulances, so we're trying to get the whole fleet equipped. I can tell you that we have not had a single back injury related to lifting and loading patients since we went to power packs and power loads, which is a huge, huge thing. So very happy to report that. We were trying to get 1 system per year. Last year we took that off because there was something that was more urgent and limited resources, obviously. This year it would be great if we could get back into that. I also have just a small project for IV pumps. Some of the medications require pumps to be so the dosage is exact, particularly on long distance, but even on emergency runs sometimes. So I'm trying to start a plan of 1 pump a year for several years until all of the units are equipped. That's it for the ambulance side. On the fire side, there's 1 new project that is not funded this year, but because it's new, I thought I'd mention it, that being ice rescue equipment. The ice rescue equipment that we have is pretty old. We've got some newer suits, but our Rescue Alive sled is very old. Our ropes and reels and so forth have been used quite a bit and are getting pretty old. And most importantly, there's new technology in the tools that you use to do an ice rescue. Years ago, everybody used Rescue Alive, which is a type of sled that you take out there to retrieve the patient. There are a couple of newer technologies that are safer and more easier to use that we'd like to upgrade to. But that's not this year, that's next year, but it's new, as I mentioned it. Also, a new project is 800 portable radios. We have lost a couple, these do happen, they break, and you can't fix them sometimes. So eventually we'll add that at 1 or 2 per year, but that also isn't this year. But the reason that I come to you tonight is our most urgent project, and that being the self-contained breathing apparatus and cylinders. All of our self-contained breathing apparatus, Scott packs, and the spare cylinders that go with them were purchased on a federal grant about 15 years ago. They can be used and recertified except the cylinders. And the cylinders are like $1,000, $1,300 a piece, and they all expired in 2019. Now, the thing that you would say, I'm sure, unless you have a really good memory from last year's CIP or the one before, is that we wrote grants for these things in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And in 17, they told us, you can't demonstrate adequate financial need. Your city is not in enough trouble that we can help you with this. There's people who have worse needs. That's a good thing, I guess, but it means we don't get the grant. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the new budget year, July 1st, all of our tanks are out of cert and can't be recerted. And it's not that we didn't plan for it. We even hired a grant writer last year for $1,500. Maybe he could do better than I did. It didn't work. So that's our big deal. That's our big ticket item, and it really is necessary. The SCBA is the key piece of equipment in keeping our firefighters safe as they enter an IDLH, or immediately dangerous to life and health atmosphere at a fire or hazmat or any kind of incident. The packs are not reliable. They cost a fortune in service. But most importantly, none of the tanks are usable after July 1st, and we don't have the money to buy them. So that's our big capital project. Any questions?
Have you had a failure in the field because of this?
No, we have not. But OSHA says that you can only use the tanks for, what, 10 years? 15 years. So they're coming up on that. The packs we can fix and get along with, and we have had a number of failures. We usually lose 2 or 3 packs per fire, and then fix them and put them back in service. But the tanks are the thing. We can't fix the tanks.
Bill, have you talked at all with the Besser Foundation?
I made contact with the director, and I have not been able to catch up with it yet, but I have contacted them.
Okay. I just thought that might be at least partial funding towards it, that they may see that as a community need and something that they would be willing to.
I was actually
Put some funds
planning on
towards.
asking you to help with that, because I couldn't get a call back, but I know you could.
Okay, well, I can give them a call.
Thank you. Any
Just
other
remind
questions?
me.
Okay.
I'll forget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
So the next person in general is that, or the next category that pops up is the planning category. So I don't have a lot of changes from previous years. I have four items under planning. Economic development marketing is something we consistently have on there, and it's just useful. It helps out for a number of different items. You'll notice it has the same line item number as public art, which sadly rarely survives the budgeting process, but it is something we consider important. We have been able to work with a lot of partners recently. Wow, I can't talk. Nevertheless, we have been able to work with a lot of partners recently and managed to get a lot of help with the public art aspect, between the various sculptures they just dedicated within this last year, and even the sculptures before that. So it is something that we've been inching away at. A lot of people are volunteering and giving those sculptures to us for a very discounted prices. So, as I mentioned, the line item they come out is community promotions. It goes to a lot of different things, including actually part of that line item is taping the council minutes and putting those up for on YouTube, transparency, stuff like that. So it catches quite a bit. The other thing I would note, the other ones are also routine comprehensive plan update and city recreation plan update. We are scheduled to do those every 5 years, so we are required by the Planning and Enabling Act to do those. I would note, this is I want to put in a commercial. here for you all, March 12th, we are having our first public input session for Mischievous Park. And that's going to be held at NOAA in the classroom there. I'm hoping as many of you can attend as possible. We're gonna put out a press release tomorrow, I believe, and get the word out. I will have an exact time for you. I wanna say it was 5:30, but I will have that in the press release, but hopefully you can save the date on that one. So that being said, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Don't see any, so Chief, you come up and talk about your area projects.
Good evening. No new projects this year. We have the standard, I think, 5 or 6 pretty much every year. The only thing I really want to bring your attention to is that it'll be our first one, the police vehicles. We had kind of a unique situation right now is that Ford, which is our primary patrol vehicle, we're going to a new hybrid and for our SUVs. And despite our best efforts, as of right now, they're unable to give us really a set price, what they're gonna be looking for. A lot of speculation, so a lot of guesswork right now on these numbers. I think we're pretty good, but it could be lower. I don't think this can be much higher, hopefully lower. But the ironic thing about it, they're actually charging us more if we try to stay with a straight internal combustion engine. So they kind of got us over a barrel there. But that was really the only big unknown here. Everything else, probably the only other thing we're looking at, our tasers are getting to the end of their life cycle right now. And after the warranty goes out, the manufacturer would not back us up in any type of court cases, any type of litigation involving a taser. Once they're past that period, they kind of wash their hands of the product. And so we have to keep on a regular replacement cycle for the taser also. And then kind of with that also would be our body armor every 5 years. We have to replace our body armor. They're only good for that long. Typically they'll last longer than that. But again, the manufacturers, the industry standard is 5 years. And we open ourselves up to litigation if we ever had a shooting and if the vest failed. Not only would we potentially have an injury, but then they could say, I wasn't provided the proper equipment. So every 5 years we go through that. The good thing about the vest is that we participate in a program called the Bulletproof Vest Replacement Program through the Department of Justice, and they reimburse us 50% for our vest. And likewise with the cars, we've had pretty good luck with the USDA. 40% they'll put towards a project, and so they have financed, I think, 5 out of our last 6 programs or projects, so we're pretty good there. But that is it. Any questions on those?
What was the life cycle of the taser, Chief? You had mentioned it.
Sir, I think 5 years on that also, I believe, 5 to 6, but.
That's what it says in the explanation, it says 5 years. In the explanation, it says 5 years.
5, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I had it in there. And again, I think a lot of our tasers are 10, 12 years old, and they keep on plugging along. We're still keeping them in service, but because they are expensive. So, and right now, every officer has a taser issued to that individual officer, which is a good thing. So.
And they also, for the tasers, do they have the same thing like they do with body armor, where they'll give you 50% if you turn it back in? And
Sometimes they do, sir. I mean, they'll run specials. Usually, what we find though is that they're offering you pennies on the dollar for a unit. And so we would keep the old ones as backups or for training devices, that type of thing. But yeah, anytime we have a buyback program, we always look into those, always. Because number one, we don't want it laying around if it's no good to us. And if we get some money for it, we take advantage of those programs. Anything else, folks? Thank you for your time.
Steve, you want to tell us a little bit about IT?
Do you want to do Don?
You can go down first if you want, sure.
And then we'll do the building last, or do you wanna do that?
All at once.
Yeah.
You got it.
You're gonna make Kathy jump screen.
And the radar. Otherwise they get forgotten.
John's gonna take more than about an hour and a half. John's doing double duty today, so.
Mike's not feeling well. So we'll do the marina first, I'm assuming. And basically, the only new thing that's in there is we're gonna redo the concrete around the boat well. And that's the section that the travel lift that pulls the boats out of the water, puts them back in, goes on, it's all cracked up and uneven. And with some of the size of the vessels that we have, they're barely up off the ground to begin with. You know, they lift to capacity, like the Lady Michigan would be a good example, some of the new, boats that the Fish and Wildlife just acquired. The last thing we wanna do is have a tire go down in a little bit of a hole and wreck a boat. So, that's a $27,000 project, that's an estimate that Shannon and I came up with, it may be a little bit less than that, but that's something that absolutely, needs to happen down at the marina this year. And then there's other stuff there that, has been in there for a couple of years and keeps pushed down the way a little bit. We do have some issues right now with our floating docks, I'm working on, insurance on those. So we spent about $5,000 so far just holding them in place so they don't get any further damage. And I know there's been some damage to some of the new electrical wiring we put in, it got stretched too tight. And so we won't know what we have to do until we actually go to fire that back up. But we'll see how that all plays out with the insurance money. Okay, City Hall? Building, you wanna switch to that one first? Anybody have any questions about the marina before I? No, come on. Okay, so all we've got, new projects, in total for this year between City Hall and police, fire, ambulance, building, we're looking to spend about $120,000 are in the CIP, doesn't mean it's all gonna survive, but that's what's in for these two buildings. The new projects, test and balance, the HVAC at City Hall, we had $7,000. And as you know from Mike's explanation, last year we put some money into the heating and cooling systems and the ductwork and boosters and the lines and all kinds of things, trying to make people more comfortable. And so the test and balancing, what that does is precludes someone from, when the system is running optimally, using less amount of energy, that, something's wrong with one of the ducts going into a room that's got a thermostat, and somebody cranks that up to get more comfortable and it throws the whole thing out of whack. So that's something that we need to do periodically. And the only other new thing in for City Hall would be, and that's pushed all the way out to 24, 25, and that's exterior building rehab, and, we have buildings, and those maintenance, items are never ending, so Mike's got that in there going back out, and that's the kind of stuff with, tuck pointing the concrete, fixing a roof leak, and things like that just happen, so there's some money in there for that. But as I said, for both buildings, we're looking at about $120,000, which is what we call pre-budget. Anybody have any questions about what I talked about or anything else you see in there? Fire away.
Down interior rehab on City Hall has been on here for a bit, and it said, I lost it now, but I read that you're gonna go floor by floor, $10,000 a year or something like that. But now I see that it's only in there for this year and next year, but we have 3 floors, but we haven't rehabbed a floor, have we?
No.
I just wanted to point out that if that's still the plan, then we should probably.
It's always the plan, at this meeting.
Right. But it's only in here for two years as
Well,
well.
maybe Mike's still on the top of the
Comment on that?
basement, I don't know.
Well, he's not gonna rehab the
Comment on
basement.
Actually, with,
Okay.
I was just pointing it out.
with the way, with the changes, with the assessor not being in this building right now, and in the near term, are we gonna have an assessor at some point come back? Is this subcontractual arrangement gonna be what council move with in the future? We're not too worried. I mean, it's Mike and I in the basement, and we can deal with what we've got down there. So I don't know, because I didn't talk to Mike before tonight about this, but that could be the reason he might have dropped that one off. So there's still money in for this floor and no one underneath. And we are looking at, there are things we're looking at, I don't know if you call them rehab, better security, better lock, cylinders, a knock box on the outside, if there's something the police or the fire need to get in, and things of that nature. But these are the things we'd like to do, and then we all know that when budget time comes, some of these aren't gonna be.
We are looking at, right now, with money that's, I think, still in for this year. I think for fire, alarm system of, possibly redirecting that towards the security aspect, and if it's not enough money, budgeting next year to get, and not swipe cards necessarily, but some type of entry into certainly the exterior doors, certain ones on the inside, getting other doors keyed the same, so if we put keys in the lockbox, we're not putting 15 keys in there for every office,
Right.
because if there is something going on, we just soon have them open it with a key rather than busting the door down.
There's, Greg,
So-
there's $23,000,
Right.
and it might have got chopped to 17.5,
Yeah.
but that's for the single master key entry
Right.
system and the
So-
security, so that's in what we approved last year.
So we're looking at all these things right now, getting some prices, and even looking at some possible changes in the clerk's office, on a security end, looking at panic buttons, which we used to have, but they don't operate anymore, and perhaps expanding those. So if things happen, you know, they can push the button and Joe will be here in 2.5 seconds. You
And
know.
we're also planning on getting those vests that he can't use anymore, we're gonna start wearing those too.
Yeah.
System.
And hope that it, they work.
Any other questions?
Yes. Because it's City Hall, I'm just curious, do you need a Knox box on it? I mean, if it's a private building that belongs to a private party, you need a knock, but, I mean, at City Hall, I think the fire chief or somebody probably has a key to the door, don't they?
We're mostly doing it so the city manager can get in when he forgets his key.
Yeah. Well, the part of the thing is, if it's after hours, there are keys, but that person may not be readily available. And certainly if they get inside the building, they don't have a key for every office.
Right.
And so, again, it's, if they have to get into an office because of an issue, there's a fire, whatever, if there's no key, they're gonna go in there and smash the door. It's not something we really want, if we then have to replace that and everything else. Same in a downtown building or that, if you can preserve the integrity of the building, then that's what you would
I
prefer to do.
actually had that conversation with the deputy chief today in my office about the Knox box, and we're planning on putting one on it. It's
Yep.
gonna be black, it's not gonna be obtrusive, and because this is a historical building, we're gonna put it in the least historical section, which would be the employee's entrance that goes down the basement. It's just that, I don't even know what you call that stuff, clay, it's not cement, it's old coat stucco or whatever.
Oh, Ethos.
Yeah, we put it on that, we're, not really a big deal, but it's just to have one key to get into every single office.
And
Right
that's
now,
why I
yeah.
wanna look at, because a lot of the officers are still gonna have keys, is can we get those so they have hopefully a master key or
Yeah, we
only
are.
2 or 3 of those, so that again, you don't have a ring of 15 keys, one for every office, that they gotta go through to figure out how to, to get in. That it'll be very quick, we just wanna make it very easy, whether it's fire, police, whoever it may be. Or if I call because I forgot my keys and I need to get in, and I ask them to come, we can still get in, and get into my office.
Just to clarify for anyone that isn't aware of the Knox program, a Knox box is a little vault that's darn near impenetrable, that's opened by a specific key, and that key is the same in any Knox box in the city of Alpena. Therefore, the key that opens the box, that key to the city, so to speak, is carried in a key vault in fire vehicles only. Nobody else has the key. But if you need to get in, we can come over and get you in. And the idea on a building like this is to try and save these historic doors rather than take out a window or take out a door frame or whatever you gotta do. If obviously there's a big fire, that isn't a big deal, but if there's maybe an alarm activation or smell of smoke or whatever it might be, it would be better to be able to come in without damage. Those master keys are very, very carefully monitored, and that's why there aren't a lot of them out there, because they open every Knox box in the city.
But I guess my question is, why is it, it's City Hall, so it's not a private, like if somebody wants to get into Sherwin-Williams or whatever, you're not gonna go and try and find the guy in the middle of the night or whatever, but I think everybody that works for the city probably has a,
No, that isn't the case. Bill probably can get into the building, I don't know, Bob, you have a key or not. So the fire, all the fire, you know, unless the chief is there right away, they don't have a key. After hours, you know, and during hours won't matter.
It's also, it used to be when we had an alarm system, you know, back in 2000 when it was all working, and there was an alarm, they called me. I live 10 blocks, I came down, I got a key to everything. You know, it was usually a false alarm. That system's gonna be put back in place, but it's gonna go to a monitored location that's probably gonna call the fire station, I would imagine, or the police station where somebody's always at, so it's just kinda get in line with that. Plus, one of these days, I'm just gonna say that because I quit. Any other questions?
Or be fired.
Or be fired. It's all the same.
And there it is.
You want to talk about that, Chief? And again, and just to stress what you've heard several department heads say, the fact is, we all know that all of this is not going to be funded. In a perfect world, it absolutely would be.
We don't
But
need, what,
unfortunately,
$42 million or something? Yeah, 40, we only need $42 million to do that, so. If any of you have a printing press, let us know.
Nope.
In the IT department, I kind of strive to, you know, keep a replacement cycle for everybody going, so it's a lot of the same projects all the way through. Two of the large projects this year, not large, but just important, are to finish the cycle on all of our PCs. We did all the single-user PCs this past year, and next year we want to do the rest of them. Multi-user PCs with multi-people logging into them on a regular basis. The other one is a fire records management system. Bill has asked us to do something different than what he's been using as of late, and that has come up. And it was in the CIP and it worked, because it came up and it made its way through, and now it's the top project, and we need to get that finished. The only other project I have that would be considered new would be police mobile data terminals. This was, it wasn't in the cycle for a while because they weren't utilizing them, and they've started utilizing the old ones they have and discovered that, maybe it's time to update them and get them in. So I've got, some money in there the first 3 years to basically replace all of the ones that we have that are sort of working right now. So, other than that, like I said, it's pretty much everything is cycling through and just replacing items that are too old. So, any questions?
Actually, Steve, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but the in-car videos, I know we talked about this before.
Yeah,
Because I'm on a 2-1-2-1-2-1 cycle.
right.
And you're
That's
on a
right, that's got a
1-2.
swap, doesn't it?
Yeah, we gotta
Yeah.
swap those around.
Yeah, this coming year will be at 12,500, and next year will be at
We just
62.
have one car with them
I'm gonna swap
until the
those, so.
next year, when we have an accident.
He buys his vehicles twice, 2-1-2-1, so
No, you
do a
put it in the
2-1-2-1.
car of the previous year, they didn't get it.
Yeah, number 85, I'll swap those around.
Thank you.
Any questions?
all right, well, before I
So
get to
demand.
Rich, any other department head have anything
It's
that I
so
missed?
demanding.
All right, Rich, you want to do two your projects?
Anybody needs a bathroom break, this is the time to go.
You can put it further away from the chairs.
Adam was right, there's 235 projects in there. I own 993 of them, so like I said, this is my living document. One thing, and you hear it stated, in the public, that the CIP is nothing but a wish list. And people may think that, but these are projects that we have identified either through needs basis, or we've been approached by council, we've been approached by other entities about possibly trying to do these projects. So, we put them into the CIP. Adam's right, all the other department heads are right. We know that they're not all gonna make it in there, but that doesn't make it a wish list. Those are still needs that are out there that if they don't happen, they get pushed back. And especially in water water predominantly, and a little bit in sewer, we had some funding issues. When we started out the year, our fund balance, we had to work on some issues with that. So some of those projects in water and sewer got put on hold. So even though they were in the budget last year, we've had to reallocate them into the CIP for this upcoming year. And so you will potentially, if you look at the budget and look at our CIP, you'd see some duplicates, but it's just because we had to put some projects on hold. We've been, and I'm not gonna go through every individual project, just wanna highlight a couple of things. We've been very successful in our rehabilitation program with our plow trucks. We've been sending them to Grand Rapids, and they basically get rebuilt, new frames put under them, and rebuilt all the way up. Luckily, we've been able to reuse the engines and most of the major components. And we're gonna do that again. Actually, we've already issued a PO. It's for next year, but we've issued a PO right now to hold our spot in line for June, to get our truck down to Grand Rapids to get number 45 rebuilt. And we're doing it for about 50 cents on the dollar. If we were to go out and buy a brand new truck, we'd be looking at $130,000 to $140,000. And we can rehab that one for about 65. So we're doing it for about half cost of a brand new truck. It's been very beneficial to us. We've actually, I've asked our DPW to look into if there are other programs like that for some of our other equipment, our loaders and that. We don't know of any, but we're gonna keep looking. You know, similar to Joel with his police vehicles, you know, I've got I'm gonna replace two 11-year-old four-wheel drive plow trucks, and anybody who plows knows that 11 years on a plow truck is a stretch, and they're not just used for plowing. When we take the plows off in the summer, we hook trailers onto them, and they're on the road every day, pulling trailers around for mowing, et cetera. So we try to stretch that equipment as far as we can, and we don't have years ago, I used to have $200,000 to $300,000 a year to replace equipment. Now, the equipment fund is slowly been eroding. I'm down, I can spend about $100,000 a year. Go out and try to buy a $175,000 backhoe or $200,000 loader. It's tough. Nothing really new in our cemetery. So we will be working on finishing up building renovations over there. That's actually out for bid right now. We've had the walkthrough, and we should have bids back actually next Tuesday. In our parks, the big project is replacement of public restrooms. That has been something that we have been pushing for. The old ones have been closed up. They don't put a very good light on the city for anybody that goes in and uses them, so we felt we were better off to keep them closed. We will be pursuing tearing those down and then getting new ones. We're actually looking at some grant opportunities right now to see if we can chase some grant dollars towards that. Public Works, probably one of the ones that you'll see happen this summer is bike parking. We're looking at, we've met with the DDA with a design concept. That will, I think, be going to the full board at the next meeting for their concurrence on that. Looking at putting some covered bike parking in the downtown, one near the DDA building, one near the corner of, what's Corner Street? Second
And Carter.
Carter. I was drawing a blank on Carter.
And then third.
So those will be things that you'll see. In our our local streets and our major streets, we've put a lot of focus on, trying to rehabilitate and preserve the life on, our street system. We've been pretty fortunate. Some of the streets, you know, and I'll be the first one to tell you, you go out there and you'll see a street, say, you know, they just resurfaced this street over here that wasn't as bad as this one right here. Well, that's probably true, but if I've got old utilities that are in need to be replaced or in the short term to get replaced, I'm not gonna put a Band-Aid on it if I'm gonna do it in the next couple of years. Miller Street was a good example. That one was really in right shape. Right up, you know, the year before, we did the reconstruction on it. Got a lot of complaints on it, but it was one of those where you don't wanna spend the money on a Band-Aid that's gonna get torn off in the near future. So we've really looked at doing that. One of the new ones that we have put in here is to continue to look at the Long Lake bypass. It's in the CIP. We're gonna continue to look at options for that. There's money in there for property acquisition. We may have to acquire some property to make that happen, but we will be looking at that. Nothing is set in stone. There's nothing, no designated route as yet, but it is something that we are gonna be looking at. And again, the same with major streets. Some of these, as an example, 11th and Park intersection. That was delayed basically because of water. I've got to replace a chunk of water main underneath there. I didn't have the funding to be able to do it. So we had to hold that project off and move it back to this next year when I would have funding through the water. And one of the things, you know, well, you know, and Steve had indicated, you know, that with Bill's fire software, there was a project that started out in year 6 and worked its way up through the process. And ideally, that's the way we would like to have these progress as they go through there. But in the real world, things change, priorities change. Prime example, anybody who's driven down Long Rapids and Genshaw Road knows that I've been out there, the city has been out there twice repairing a water line that runs down Genshaw to service a couple of homes. Didn't plan on having to replace that, but that is a project I have to do this spring. I can't, that won't last. And quite frankly, the road commission's kind of getting me tired of me digging holes in their roads. So, you know, these priorities do shift, they do change, and projects, it may be slated for next year right now, but if something comes up in the priority list, that changes that, it may get shelved back. But it is a good, you know, it's a good planning tool. We've got topographic surveys for 2 to 3 years out, even some at 4 years out that we've got in. We're starting to work on the design for that. And even if it gets pushed back a year, it doesn't make that bad data. It's still data, it's still good. We're working on one for Second Avenue that is, it's actually in 2020 and 21, 22 that we're looking at. We've had the topo for a couple of years, and we've been working on the design on that. And that's a major project. That's, you know, just as an example, the water owns about $860,000 to go from the Second Avenue Bridge out to Huber Street. And then I've got sewer costs on top of that. Reconstruction is not a cheap process. We've been reviewing our dollar values on an ongoing basis, but you know, you look at the totals, and again, I said this isn't a wish list. At our water recycling plant, this is information I got from the people who operate the plant. What do you need? What type of equipment? What upgrades do you need? $775,000 over the next 6 years, just at the water recycling plant. For the sewer fund, I'm looking at about $11.4 million in needs that exist out there. Water, we're looking at $1.97 million in improvements needed at the water plant. And overall, $14.285 million for the water system. So, to try to keep up, we need to stay on top of those projects and progress them through the program. Unfortunately, there's not grant dollars out there for water and sewer replacement. If there are, we do chase them. If we have an economic development project, we work with Adam. We work with the individual companies to see if we can access those dollars. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's pretty much what I have in the CIP. If there's any questions. Yes, sir.
And I almost feel bad saying this after everything you just said, but First Avenue is cracking in half. Do you have a plan for that, or are you just gonna patch it for now? I didn't even see it in like a 5-year plan.
It's not, and it's one that, I'm leaving it that way because Greg drives down all the time.
I brought it up to him.
And
I
he-
said, I'm gonna die on my bike on that street,
I
cause it's got,
wonder why.
That'll save the pension fund.
Augie brought it up right
No,
before
my wife
for
did,
California or something, but then I rolled down there a few times and, you could.
Yeah, we've got some spots in there. We haven't had, and this is one of the things we're gonna do this year too, just to back up. A lot of the input on the CIP is driven by our knowledge of the age and our experience as far as breaks and failures and that. One of the things we're gonna do, excuse me, and I talked to Shannon about this. We're gonna work with Suez, Steve, and some of the software we've got, start plotting our main breaks, our service repairs and that, so that maybe we can have a little bit better, instead of relying on written documents, that we can graphically look and see, okay, we've had, Long Lake Avenue, I've had 2 water main breaks this year. Does that move it up? The unfortunate thing is, I haven't had a lot of water main breaks or repairs. I haven't had a lot of complaints from the utilities there. And a lot of times that's what's driving that. It's a situation, actually, because it's not in here, the utilities are old underneath there. They do need to be replaced. But we've got an opportunity, there's gonna be a mill in town this spring. Bruce Goodrich is bringing a mill in. That may be one that we look at, just milling and putting a Band-Aid on, knowing that we can get 5 or 6 years, because they don't have the break history on that. So it is something we will be looking at.
Okay.
And that's one I can use my major street resurfacing money on to go towards that.
And from my perspective, it seems like it just got really bad just over maybe the last 6-7 months.
It deteriorated
Really
quite a
went
bit.
quick, so.
yeah, it's almost like on some of it, it's just widening like you had a fault line and it's just
Yeah.
separated.
Just wanted to make sure.
When a bike
that-
falls in,
No,
it doesn't
it's-
come out.
It's not the CIP, but it is on our radar.
I go like this, I
A couple other questions that I had,
Right,
Rich.
that's why I'm tired.
One, I know Adam brought
Yeah.
up
I'm going
earlier,
over
maybe
it.
you can answer this. Nishikiwa's Park, we're doing some vignettes this year, but yet I didn't see anything in there as far as any future funding 6 years out or anything like that for any improvements or anything like that. Are we waiting until we understand exactly what we wanna do down there, I'm assuming,
Actually,
or I missed something?
if you, 58, the skating rink improvements, that was for some of that work out front grading to put in that, skating park, as I remember.
Yeah, most of that, you're talking about Mishikiwas,
Yeah.
I think it makes sense, since we're gonna be doing these charrettes and over the next, maybe 6 months, really knowing then we can put those into the CIP, because we're not gonna be able to apply for grants until,
We have it in.
until 2020 anyways, because once we do the charrette, we also need to update, as Adam said earlier, our recreation plan. And so all those things are gonna have to be in there in order to be able to apply to the DNR for funding. So, you know, it makes sense just to, you know, kind of follow that progression and then figure out what our priorities are of what we do.
In previous years, there was, I wanna say, close to $750,000 between Mishikiwas and Starlight Beach, targeted towards that master plan that existed out there. When we knocked off, when we took, you know, the splash pad and completed that, took a major chunk of that off, and then with the planning, we did delete some, but there is still some money. It's Starlight Beach pedestrian gateways, it's kind of a combination between Starlight Beach and Mishikiwas both, but that was something that was in the old plan. It may get deleted from this and something else fall into it.
That being said, part of the planning process that we're undergoing is actually not only, you know, looking at what projects we want, but budgeting, giving us very real dollar figures of how much they're gonna cost and potential areas of, resources we can go and help get assistance to them. So obviously DNR has been great, but there are other places as well, so just add my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I have another one, if I'm jumping ahead of anybody else. I noticed on your water fund, the idea of possibly next year, installing a test well for alternate water source. What it didn't say, which I think is a great idea, and I actually, for my 2 cents, I wouldn't mind seeing that sooner. But I didn't, it mentions that if successful, there's a possibility of putting in a water field and changing the whole scope of how we produce water, but it doesn't say what that field might cost. I mean, you're gonna, so I think it's a good idea, but you spend $100,000, let's say the test well is successful, but it's like $8 million to put in to put in a field. How do we know whether that's?
This is kind of driven by that whole source water protection, you know, and the DEQ comes in every 5 years, and we have to do it's called a sanitary survey. They look at our water plant, look at different things. And one of the suggestions that they made was that even though we have, you know, a water source in the bay, it's pretty well protected. We don't have a lot of problems. We have a lot of siltation from the river in the spring, but we don't have a lot of contaminant issues. The real concern being some freighter comes in, runs aground, has a fuel leak that plumes right over our intake. You know, we can't draw water in. What we're looking at doing, and this was a suggestion from them, was that we basically go right down near the water plant and do a test well, and then see what volume of water, what capabilities we get out of that test well. You know, it may be a situation, if I can pull 6 million or 3 million gallons a day out of that, I may only have to put in one more well to meet the water the plant's needs, and basically it'd be pumped right into the shore well. So until we get that test well in, it's premature to try to even estimate what the future might be. And it could be a backup source, you know, a lot of times in the winter, our intake will get plugged with frazzle ice, that, you know, kind of chunky ice that blows in on the bay. We've actually had the water intake plugged, and it won't allow water through. We have to back flush it, blow it out. It takes time, you know, and so this could be an alternate source even for that time of year. So, but the intention is to try to put something in close proximity to the water plant right there. And we're not, like I said, we're not talking about this huge grid of wells. It could be as simple as 2 or 3.
Oh, okay.
And to that, I saw, it was 206, you're gonna rebuild the intake grid, or at least wish to.
We have to.
And I do remember when that intake was plugged up, there was some thought about lengthening the intakes out into deeper water.
Is that in the
We,
CIP at all?
we've looked at it, I'm trying to think if that was still in there or not. It may have gotten pushed out only because of the cost of it. That'd be more of our long-range CIP. The intake crib, we've had video, inspections done of it. And actually, the crib it's either been damaged by ice or hit by a boat because the outer crib has failed. So we need to go in there and rebuild that crib and move the stone back in place on it. So that is something we're gonna do. We looked at, and that cost, depending on how far out we went, ranged anywhere from $700,000 for a short distance, out to $7 million for extending it out into deeper water. And that's not something that we would, that we've got in the CIP. It's more of a long range, and it's something that, if we did do that, we would obviously have to go out for some type of a bond issue to be able to fund that. Right now, our water quality has been very good. We haven't had any water quality issues. We do get some turbidity issues in the spring from the river runoff, but with our filtering, we're able to handle that and address those issues. So, right now, it's not an immediate threat. Well, as always, if there's other questions that come up, staff is always here to answer those questions.
All right, well, everyone set their piece and, some great questions. And like Rich said, staff's available. If you pick one tomorrow or whoever, just pop in, give us a call, whatever it takes. So, in the meantime, though, we do have quorums of both bodies, so usually, we'd ask the planning commission to, make a motion to, approve this year's CIP, and then we'll take a vote, and then city council, if that's okay.
Commissioners, you've heard the reports of staff, we're in a recommendation.
Approve the CIP.
Motion on the floor to approve the CIP as presented.
That's for the amendment 15.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a second motion. Clerk call roll, please.
Saber,
Yes.
Buboltz,
Yes.
Austin, Boyda,
Yes.
Kirschner,
Yes.
Gilmore,
Yes.
Van Wagner.
Yes.
I move we approve the CIP as presented and amended.
Hess,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Noak,
Yes.
and Walagora. Motion carried.
Do you need motions to adjourn, or is it?
Yes, we do. I move we adjourn.
Not used to it.